Great. So I am talking to Laura Vanderkam, and Laura is a Philadelphia area journalist and the author of 168 Hours. You Have More Time Than You Think. So welcome, Laura. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So I loved your book. So of course that's why I invited you on the summit. I think it's such an important topic. And you know, many of our listeners want to have more time for their job search, for managing their career, but they feel like they don't have it. They're too pressed for time. Now your subtitle is You Have More Time Than You Think. So for people who haven't yet read the book, and again, I highly recommend that you read the book. But if you haven't yet, can you just outline some of the key messages, the key takeaways for how we have more time than less?
Exactly. Well, it's become the fundamental truth of modern life is that we are all pressed for time, right? We all say we are busy, busy, busy. But I tell people, if you actually look at how you are spending your hours, be very accountable for them, you start to realize that we devote a lot of time to things that are not necessarily that important to us. We're doing them either because we've always done them, because we think other people expect them. It's just the way things are done. But time is a choice. And if you can get your head around that idea, there is really no limit to what you can do with the 168 hours we are all granted each week. I mean, if you think about that, every single person on this planet has the same 168 hours, right? Some people have more money, some people may have more of whatever else, but we all have the same amount of time. So the lives we live are a function of how we spend those hours, and once you start thinking that way, you start being a little bit more careful with them.
So what are some of your favorite tips and strategies that you learned from writing the book?
Well, I think that being accountable for our time is very important. If you've ever tried to lose weight, you know that nutritionists will tell you to keep a food journal because it keeps you accountable for everything that's going in your mouth. If you're trying to get out of debt, you write down what you're spending because otherwise we spend mindlessly. And it's the exact same thing with time. Many of us devote hours to, say, surfing the internet, to checking our email every 20 minutes, even though we're supposed to be working on something else, and then we look up at the clock 3 hours later, the afternoon is gone. Was that devoted toward things that are advancing us toward our professional goals? Probably not. So definitely telling people to keep track of how they're spending their time, because then you can start to ask, well, is this how I want to be spending my time? That's another huge question. You know, people always say, well, I want to save an hour a day, right? Or if only I had another 15 minutes. And I say, well, okay, if you did, what would you do with that time, right? What would you do? What would be the most important thing you could do with that time? Because I bet there is 15 minutes somewhere. So if you are very clear on what you would do with that time, then you can start finding that time to actually do it.
Do you have any stories? Because you asked people to actually keep time diaries. And I've seen, you know, on your blog, even since the book, you know, you've encouraged people to write in and talk about how this has changed them. So, I mean, people learn by example. So do you have any good examples for us in terms of how other people have done good time management?
Yeah, well, one of the more fascinating time makeovers I did is actually in the book 168 Hours in the back. It was an attorney. Her name's Catherine Murphy, and she, at the time, had a 2-year-old. She had another baby on the way. She was very busy, right? She was a corporate attorney, very high-profile job, young kids. Just things are crazy, right? When you hear about people who have crazy lives, this was definitely it. Her struggle was that she worked in an environment where she couldn't necessarily get home at a certain time. And this was really affecting her because she had this idea in her head that when parents spend time with their kids is in the evening, right? That's when you need to be there. That's when things needed to happen. And that was just rarely working for her. She was not able to come home and spend long, relaxed hours with her daughter, cook the family dinner, or other things that she had in her mind that a good mother would be doing. But we sort of looked at her schedule and realized that she didn't have to be at work very early, right? That her mornings had a bit more flexibility to them than the evenings did. And so we just took everything that she would have thinking that a good mother should be doing in the evening, and we stuck it in the morning. right? So she's hanging out with her daughter in the morning. They're playing together. They're hanging out at the house, reading stories, doing projects, cooking breakfast together, right? That she wanted to cook meals for her family so she can cook breakfast. So we just shifted that to there. And I think it was a good reminder to me that you can have a lot of hours spoken for, but then you can find other hours to do things that matter to you. And so we often have ideas that certain things can only be done at certain times, but this may not be true. I mean, we have 168 hours in a week that are at our disposal. Sorry. So, why not look at them and see where you can start sticking things in?
Got it. So, just with you talking, you made me think of something, so I'm going to veer a little bit off topic. I remember from your book that you had some tips that were, on the professional side, and then there were tips, on the personal side. So I'm curious to know, is it because you found in your research or as you were writing it that the time management issues were very different, or can you talk about, because our audience is thinking about career, what some of the more kind of professionally related time tips?
Yeah.